Welcome to the Team GPT podcast. I am your host, back in front of the camera this time, Syed Hater. How you doing, right? And with me is Ryan, because he owns the podcast. We've talked about this, and I'm going to continuously say it. I know most of our audience are the athletes we have here. So, I mean, hopefully we expand our audience to more people from this podcast, because we do talk a lot about powerlifting, getting ready for powerlifting, and, you know, those types of exercises, obviously. But you do have other experience training different athletes, and specifically Olympic lifting. You have a USAW certification, and one of our athletes here, shout out to Bob, right, is actually going to compete in a weightlifting competition. So, like, how is that, prepping for that meet, different than prepping from, like, a powerlifting meet? Because I know it's a completely different, like, movement pattern, but it's still considered a competition. So do you want to change? Do you change your mindset? Do you sort of think about other things, other factors?
It's like such a loaded question.
Hell
like,
yeah, it is.
There's like so much that we can talk about, but I'm going to try to do it in the next 25 minutes.
No, we got a solid hour and a half, guys.
No, we do not. We've probably talked this a little bit before. When I was in college, I was a Division I baseball player, and I got
showing
off, and got into all of this. I was going to school for exercise science, and my junior year, my strength and conditioning class was one day in the classroom, one day we just met in the gym and we trained. I was lucky that my professor was Gary Valentine, who I still think owns some Masters World Records for Olympic weightlifting. I went to one of his meets. I saw him clean and jerk 363 at 231 when he was like 51 years old. So I had been training for, 12 years at that point for baseball. But that was the first time that I had done any weightlifting, and I just really enjoyed it. I thought it was something that was difficult but fun, and I was kind of good at it. So like it was, fun to play with. So that was like my really first intro into a strength sport. And as she said, I did go out and get USAW certified as a club coach, but ended up kind of making our way more into powerlifting.
Yeah.
So I haven't used that as much, but he said Dr. Bob is doing the first Team GPT weightlifting meet, so he'll be the first GPT weightlifter.
Dibs on second.
We have a bunch of people that train for it, but no one's actually done a meet yet. So Bobby's doing one coming up soon. So I'll be going to that meet to coach him for that one.
This will be your first time actually coaching a competition.
Coaching at a meet, yeah. We've coached several weightlifters, but this will be the first time like at the meet. We've had a lot of people that enjoy the sport and train it, but they haven't actually decided to compete yet. So Bobby's the first one doing the meet. It's a very different mindset. The first thing I know is if you don't know both sports, powerlifting, we had a meet last year where one of our other weightlifters he came into the meet and he was like, what's going on? Because we had music blasting and everyone was cheering. And in a weightlifting meet, it's much more quiet. I think the big reason is that weightlifting is just much more technical. So people are usually, especially while people are getting set up for the actual lift themselves, are usually pretty quiet. And then once the bar is usually overhead, it gets a little bit louder. But it's a little bit more reserved, so that's a little bit of a different mindset. The strategy is very different, just because, again, like you said, the rules of the sport are very different. Where in powerlifting, the round system, so you take your first squat, then everyone else does, then you come back for your second. In weightlifting, depending on what's going on, you might follow yourself. So okay. Bobby might open a snatch at 75 kilos. If he goes from 75 to 80, and the next lightest lifter is at 81, then Bobby goes again. So you get a short break because you're following yourself, and then you go again. So you might actually end up taking 3 of your lifts in about 6 minutes. And that was one of the things I saw Gary do it at the meet that the first meet I ever went to, was that he was the strongest lifter there, so he took his opening attempt after everyone else was done. And then he put in his second, Then he put in his third, and that was all for snatch, and then the same thing for clean and jerk. So literally everyone in the meet was done except for Gary. So that can happen. That's a big difference. So a little bit different mindset of being able to take your attempt to get right back into it. Where in powerlifting, you probably have 10 to 15 minutes before you go again. A little bit different in conditioning-wise that you have to be ready to go. Like, you're taking a max attempt, or powerlifting might take a 5-10 minute break. In Olympic lifting, you might have 2 minutes. So you got to get back out there. Because the technicalities of the sport, there's more like you hit the lift and come over and say, okay, this is what we did, blah, 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 blah. Trying to figure out what to do quickly and move in to correct it, because where in powerlifting I might be able to yell at you a cue, like, hey, knees out. Like, while you're lifting, you might hear that and say, okay, and shove your knees out. There's not much I can yell in that quick second that it takes to throw a snatch overhead that's going to have any impact during the lift.
Yeah.
So because Bobby's the first one that I've coached that's doing me, and Brian Thompson used to train here. Brian has done meets, but I wasn't coaching Brian at the time. So Bobby's the first one from the team. Bobby, I'm going to use him over and over, so Bob, hope you listen. His big thing is keeping his eyes up. He likes to look down. When he looks down, he often will lean forward a little bit, lose the lift. So I'm going to tell Bobby before he goes up to the platform, eyes up, eyes up, eyes up. Keep that gaze up so he's looking forward and not leaning forward and losing a lift overhead that he should have. Where I'm not going to probably yell it in the middle of the lift. Like I said, we're powerlifting, I'll be off to the side of the platform yelling at you, knees out, chest up, things like that. I'm going to tell him a couple things before. I'm just going to go out and do the lift, come back over, we'll talk about it real quick, get ready for the next one. So that's a big difference.
Do strategies change? I know we're sort of drifting off to, like we talk about meat selection in a couple podcasts, right? Does that change here? Like a strategy is like, I want him to hit these lifts. If he doesn't get this, we're going to have to go to here, or we're hitting it again, or...
Yeah, I think weightlifting is very different in that regard, where in powerlifting, you might take your last warm-up at, 80, 82% of whatever you're looking to do for that day, and then your openers are like around 90-ish%. Bobby's going to open snatch for like around 75 kilos, 165 pounds. He's probably going to take very close to that in the back room.
Okay.
Where like in powerlifting, your last warm up might be 30 or 40 pounds away from your first attempt. His might be 3 to 5 pounds, or it might even be the same weight. Because since it's not as heavy, it's still a heavy lift for him, but it's not just the absolute weight. You usually warm up a little bit closer. Make sure that you've got to handle the technical aspect of it before you go out and take your next attempt. As is his first meet, and we're probably not playing for like positioning on winning or anything. We just want to make lifts. So just like in powerlifting, we're going to make sure we call the right attempt so we can make all the lifts and have a good day. But generally, the jumps are not going to be as big. So maybe a 3 to 5 kilo jump on attempts, where in powerlifting, depending on the lift, 10, 15 kilo jumps not crazy.
Yeah.
A 10 to 15 kilo jump in weightlifting is insane. Maybe if you're going to go for the win on a clean and jerk, and but even then, it's not likely. But I think the big one that I've actually talked about for powerlifting, which I think is a very interesting thought for powerlifting, is that weightlifting a few years ago changed it so they don't do 2.5 kilo jumps, they do 1 kilo jumps. So you can go from 75 to 76. In powerlifting, you have to go 75 to 77.5. That 1 kilo does change things because you're more likely to be able to hit some of those attempts instead of having to make a bigger jump. So strategy wise, maybe a lift was hard, maybe just standing up from the bottom of the snatch was the difficult part. So we can go up 1 kilo instead of going up 2.5. Because now it's the strength aspect instead of a skill. That'll change not so much the planning, but I guess the strategy involved in case we're trying to beat someone, where you can take that 1 kilo and try to push instead of tying. Where in powerlifting, you can go for the 2.5. You have to go for 2.5 kilo jump, and that's a big difference, especially like when you're talking about with like smaller weights. So a 75 kilo snatch to 77.5. Not a huge jump, but like 75 76 is better. But we talk about like with benching and powerlifting, if you're going from 75 kilos, is like maybe that's close to your max, and you're going to go to 77. That's a big jump. Yeah. It's a big percentage of your max. So to go up 1 kilo is a little bit easier. Just makes it a little bit more interesting, I guess, because there's so many more choices. Where in powerlifting, it's got to go up 2.5. In weightlifting, it might be 1, 2, 3. And so there's 3 choices compared to the 1, so that changes the strategy a little bit if you're going for placement. But like I said, I mean, this meet, we want to go 6 for 6. Yeah. Get a meet total on the board. Hopefully hit some PRs. That would be great. He's also doing what we just talked about in another podcast that we don't like to do. He is cutting a little bit of weight. Yeah. Eat a sandwich, Bobby. So that's going to have a little bit of a factor too. But overall, it's still a strength sport. It's still a sport. You're still going out there. You're competing against yourself. You're competing against others. You're still trying to better yourself and hopefully, beat other people that you're competing against. So we're still going to be looking at the board and seeing what people are putting in, adjusting accordingly to see how we can perform better. Just done in a little bit different way.
This might be a question we might have to cut out. But do you recall the first time you coached a powerlifting meet, like an athlete that like at a competition, and what has changed since then to now, and how like is it going to be like sort of a juxtaposition of you at that point in time with this new weightlifting meet coming up?
Oh,
like,
probably.
Yeah.
I think the first meet that I really, especially someone that I was coaching that was relatively new to the sport, I was programming and coaching a little bit for my buddy Carl, who Carl was 3rd in the country 2 years in a row for USA Powerlifting. So
right out of the gate, you just nailed it.
Well, Carl had a lot of background in training beforehand and competing.
Yeah.
So especially game day coaching for him, he pretty much knew what he was doing. I was just there to make his life a little bit easier. One of the first meets I think was one of our lifters that's still with us, Aaron Boulay. We went up to Johnston, Rhode Island, and did a meet up there. And I remember watching his, like now I think about this, like I like watched one of his attempts from the crowd. Like I'm not even sure I coached him. I put his numbers in and I think I just left. I didn't know what coaching was then. Like I think it was just handling him a little bit, but didn't do a whole lot. Or now, now I've got a whole plan ahead of time, and I mean down to the warm ups, down to when you're warming up and what you're doing, and when to do it, and how to adjust on the fly, and plan everything out accordingly. And I mean, for this meet, we're still going to have a plan. Maybe I'll be a little more hectic in my brain, trying to figure out everything we're doing, because there's a few different rules that we'll have to, that maybe we'll be implementing a little bit. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I guess the first time I coached, I would consider myself a pretty bad coach, and didn't do a whole lot. And hopefully this time I can at least draw on some of my experience in powerlifting, that I can be a better coach for him on the first day. But
I mean, it does help that Bobby was a powerlifting athlete, so you sort of know his takes and how he needs to be handled in regards to powerlifting,
right?
And you might be able to transition that over to weightlifting.
And that's true. I have known Bobby for a while. I've coached him for a long time. Bobby was a high level powerlifter, 5th in the country a couple years ago at Raw Nationals, before he decided to switch over and try something new. So this is not new to him. I mean, the sport itself is new to him, but the competing and especially in the strength sport is not new. So that'll be a little bit easier than someone that's never done it before.
Yeah.
But it's still different. I mean, I downloaded the rule book to reread it the other day because it's been a little while, and I want to make sure that we don't make some mistake that we're like, oh, well, in powerlifting, nope, not the same sport. That doesn't count. So I think we'll be okay. But yeah, like I said, if I think back to our first meets as powerlifting, it's like, I was terrible. So,
I mean, not terrible. You just didn't know what to do.
Well, I mean, I talked to a friend the other day, and I've been lucky enough in powerlifting that I've met a lot of people that have been very helpful.
Yeah.
Learned a lot from a lot of different coaches. So because of that, it has allowed us to be better. To just because I've been coached by coaches on how to coach better.
Yeah.
And in weightlifting, having Gary as my first coach, like I like to think that's going to help because Gary coaches Team Connecticut, and I'm sure most of them will be there on the day of the meet, and I'm sure that most of them will win their weight classes. So I had a great coach there too. So I think that at least should carry over a little bit, even though it's been 14 years since that strength and conditioning class. Sorry, Gary. But I think, like I said, I think I can bring over some of that experience from powerlifting to at least help them in Olympic lifting. And we talked about stress in another podcast, like just come down to managing stress on that day. What can I do for the athlete? What can I do for Bobby in this situation to minimize stress as much as possible? So all he has to do is go out there and lift the weight.
Yeah.
If I can do that, and all he has to do is go out there and hit his opener and go up a few kilos and hit a little more and go up a few kilos, hit a little more, and he doesn't have to think about it or anything and worry about it, then we should have a good day. So that's my job, is just to make his day as easy as possible.
Yeah. So it's similar in the sense that because Bobby isn't like shooting for like positioning or like trying to like win this competition overall or something weird like that, you're treating him like you would treat any other powerlifting athlete in the sense that let's just try to do well.
Right.
Let's go out there, have a good day, have fun. Right. That's the advice you gave me when I did my first powerlifting competition. You're like, just do it. Let's go have fun. Squat as much as you can, and then hopefully we'll can continue powerlifting after that.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm hoping that Bobby enjoys this experience enough that he wants to do another meet, and get better at it. So, like you just said with powerlifting, like go out and have fun with it, and just enjoy it. Like like I said, if he can, if we're in a place to win, we
might push it.
We might push a little bit. If he's got to put another 2 kilos on the bar to maybe win a class or something like that, then we might go for it. Because why not?
Yeah.
But if we're behind by 20 kilos going into the last clean and jerk, then let's just hit a PR and end on a good note and not try to go for the 21 kilos we need to win and wonder why the bar didn't break the floor. Or we did a pull. We did a clean style deadlift and forgot that we had to catch it and press it overhead. So we'll see how it goes on meet day. But I think the big thing is just going out there and enjoying it, having fun, because this is a hobby for everyone.
Yeah.
Not saying that you want to go out there and do poorly. You still you're not going to enjoy it if you're doing poorly, but go out there and have fun.
Is there, because I know in at least powerlifting there are like certain areas that people like lose lifts, right? Like in squat, if like you're in the hold, you can't squat up, versus people who shoot their hips back too high when they're squatting, or like right off the chest when they're benching. Is there like a common place that people lose lifts in Olympic lifting?
Yeah, I mean, like it's still everyone's different, obviously, but like is it a more of a skill issue or more of a strength issue? People will lose lifts if maybe they won't be upright enough and they'll drop the bar forward, or like what Bobby does, they'll look down a little bit and start to lean forward and lose it there, or just maybe they're not strong enough to come out of the hole from their clean and their front squat's not there. I think the one a lot of people say is like that jerks win championships, and a lot of people will make the clean and then will struggle on the jerk.
Yeah.
The jerk is probably one of Bobby's better lifts, so I don't think we should be there. That should not be an issue.
Does that come from his powerlifting background?
I think Bobby's a very good bencher, so he's got some more upper body strength. So I think the jerk is an easier lift for him. And it's little things like if the skill's not there and the bar takes a little bit more of a curve than normal, then you might lose the bar overhead, or like I said, maybe you get buried in the hole because you're just not strong enough to stand up with it. So there are common places where people are going to miss, but it's a little bit different. Bobby, coming from a powerlifting background, the strength is generally not his issue.
Okay.
Like I said, and I'll say this repeatedly, is eyes up and stand up for him. When he keeps his eyes up, he usually maintains positioning a little bit better. and then it's just standing up. He'll sometimes sit at the bottom too long, and that makes it harder to stand up from a snatch or stand up from the front squat, where if you're stable and you've got to get up, like, don't wait. So that'll be a big thing for him on meet day. I'll routinely say to him, eyes up, stand up, and I think we'll have a good day from that.
How was the transition from being a powerlifter to an Olympic lifter for him? Like, how did you change programming wise? Did you just like, all right, Bob, day one, let's start clean and jerk? Like,
again, I think because he was a successful powerlifter, the strength was not going to be an issue. I mean, we're looking at like a 110 kilos, like 242 pound opener for his clean and jerk. Bobby's conventional deadlift is well over 400 pounds. So the weight isn't the issue necessarily. Like, he's easily strong enough for that. It was more of a skill issue for him. So working on positioning and doing the main lifts more, because he didn't really need to squat and to pull as much, because he needed to build up the pattern of, catching in the hole and standing up and splitting his feet enough and dipping and driving fast enough out of the jerk instead of dipping, using too much hip and getting a little out of position. So for him, it was much more about skill. As his skill has improved, that strength issue will start to come back in. We'll have to start building up some more strength again. But he paused front squat the other day well above what he wants to clean and jerk.
Yeah.
So again, the strength is easily there. It's just making sure that we hit the right positions at the right times, so the bar's in the right path and he can catch it and stand up.
now I know you have this whole thing about how, at least with the powerlifting, we have our main movements and then supplemental movements. What are the supplemental movements for like an Olympic lifter? Because there's only two main movements, right? I don't see a lot of Olympic lifters like standing there and like military pressing, but that might be a thing you might do when you're programming.
It's very different because it's such a higher level skill sport. A lot of the supplemental movements, and when I say supplemental, I usually think of supplemental as something that's very similar to the actual movement. So, like in powerlifting, like a safety squat bar compared to a squat. To me, in Olympic lifting, the supplemental movements would be, high pulls and snatch from the low hang, or snatch from a block, or a clean pull into a clean, different things like that. Where you're still doing the movement, just from maybe a different starting position, or making them slightly harder by being in some of these hang positions, where an assistance movement might be squatting. We're using the squat as a way to build up the leg strength to be able to have a better pull and then have a better recovery from the catch. But just because you can squat 500 doesn't mean you can clean anything, because you still have to be able to pull it and catch it accordingly. So again, like for someone like Bobby, we need to work on the skill. For someone who's been maybe weightlifting for a while but doesn't have the same strength base, we might push the assistance work of squatting and pulling more. Or to use military press as an example, I think you'll see very good weightlifters that don't have great military presses, because the jerk is more of a powerful leg movement, where the military press is a strict upper body. So you'll see powerlifters that might have a better military press but can't jerk anywhere near what a weightlifter can. But if someone's been weightlifting for a while, then maybe we just need to build up some shoulder strength by doing military press, which will have a carryover to their jerk, or just their overhead positioning and their stability. So it's a little bit different. We're still going to squat, we're still going to pull, but it has less of an emphasis. Like that would be like my third down the list instead of second, or
Okay.
I guess.
How good would a weightlifter do in powerlifting? Like an elite level weightlifter?
Oh, just going to make myself look like an asshole here.
I mean, we don't have to answer this question.
So a friend of mine posted something this the other day. Rob Schmidt, who's competed in powerlifting for several years and is now doing some weightlifting in Alaska, talked about how he lives in Alaska.
Oh, okay.
We said probably 5-6 years ago, most weightlifters, if they came and did a powerlifting meet, would do some damage on a powerlifting. You know, their squat is usually very good. Deadlift, just if they give them some time to learn like the powerlifting style deadlift compared to a clean style deadlift, usually that's very strong. Most of them bench pretty well, especially if you give them a little bit of time because they've got some obviously good strength from doing all the overhead work. So 5 years ago, most Olympic lifters would probably smoke most powerlifters. At the top level, there's still a lot of Olympic lifters that would do very well in powerlifting. But over the last few years, with powerlifting growing as much as it has too, you'd be hard pressed to find, even at the top level, top level weightlifters to be able to step into a powerlifting meet and beat the top level powerlifters.
Yeah.
They used like the super heavies as an example. Ray Williams squatting 1,060, like he's going to out squat any weightlifter by 250 to 350 pounds.
Yeah.
How are you going to make that up? Like that's not feasible for them to make up.
Way too far.
Yeah, it's not feasible for them to make up on the bench and deadlift, especially when he's benching in the mid fives and pulling in the mid eights. Like that's just not feasible. Now I know Ray's not normal, so that's a little bit different.
He's at 120.
That's a different standard. But I mean, even across the board, I mean, you see with the numbers how much they've improved in powerlifting. There's 105s, which is the third heaviest for powerlifting, but second heaviest for weightlifting. You've got 105 raw men that are squatting well into the sevens. There's not a whole lot of weightlifters squatting that much, even at the top level. And then some of those 105 guys are benching mid fives. The Olympic lifters are probably not doing that. And you've got 105s pulling well into the eights. So as the two sports have grown, the ability to just go back and forth is not as easy, which is good. It's better for both sports. It means that the sports are getting better.
Yeah.
Where, like I said, 5 years ago, most weightlifters could probably win most powerlifting meets. Now they would still do well, but I don't think they'd be able to step in and just automatically win.
What are your thoughts on hybrid athletes, like this guy right here who wants to try both? Like, should I just commit to one? Especially because my mobility is like not that great.
You should always do what you want to do. If you want to do both sports, then that's fine. You should be doing what you enjoy doing. So if you enjoy doing the Olympic lifts, then do them. Are you going to be able to do them to the ability that you maybe want to? Maybe not. I don't see you hitting a snatch in the bottom position and be able to stand up with a whole lot of weight right now. But maybe you can power snatch, and catch a little bit higher, not have to worry about the mobility demands as much. But if you enjoy it, then absolutely. We have several people that compete USA Powerlifting that also do USA Weightlifting, and they do well in both. So why not? If it's something you enjoy, do both. Just know that you're probably not going to be as good at either of them as you should be, as if you focused on one. But again, we talk about this all the time. Like if you're not winning money or championships or anything like that, then do what you want. It's fine. It'll make the training a little bit different, a little more difficult. But like I said, if you enjoy it, do it.
Do you believe the Earth is flat? Thank you so much for listening. To send in questions, DM me on Instagram at Syed_likes_stuff. Follow the gym on Instagram at Team GPT. For more information about the gym, visit GleasonPerformance.com and join the team. For online coaching, go to teamgpt.com.